We have Bryan Parker here from Tactical Sovereignty, and he's going to go over some things that he's been teaching us about affidavits. Hi, Bryan. Good to see you.
Hey, how we doing?
Good.
Oh, kind of missing a couple things laying around here. Just pardon me, but yeah. Affidavits, contract law. I mean, there's just so many things out there that I can tell that people's only schooling on it pretty much came from probably social media, which isn't good. For a long time, we saw people posting things about, writing an affidavit of truth or maybe an affidavit of fact. And that's definitely a telltale sign that somebody does not know what an affidavit is. Because by definition, an affidavit is truth. It is fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's redundant. Saying it twice.
Yeah. A lot of times, a lot of redundant stuff goes on in there. Yeah. I remember a while ago, I was listening to a woman, and she was talking about going to, I think it was law school or something like that. And her professor was like a real stickler, and he was having them like write affidavits or write motions or things like that for court. And then he would go and review them, I mean, openly in class. And if somebody mentioned something about how something made them feel or what time of day it was that something occurred, or I mean, just something frivolous, he would ask them, does this have any legal parameters to it? Does this have any legal influence? And they're like, well, no. And he would continue just to berate them for including that in the document.
Okay, so it has to be something that you can prove, not necessarily like a feeling that you have. It has to be truth that can be proven.
It's proven. I mean, because with an affidavit, what you're doing is you're going forward and you're basically just stating the facts of an event that occurred. You know what I mean? And remember the old TV show, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but the buzzer would say, ma'am, just the facts, ma'am, and that's what it comes down to.
Right.
So really, an affidavit starts out, and I've noticed some interesting things with different affidavits I've seen over the years. Like for instance, if you see an affidavit for an attorney that is acting as a third-party debt collector that is coming after somebody, in the opening statements of their affidavit, in the first paragraph, of course, in there you're saying, I so-and-so being of sound mind and body, being of the age of such and such, that kind of thing. And in there, they would include that the other party, which is the party that they're trying to sue, they'll say something like the other party is not a member of the armed forces. And I remember seeing that a couple times. I'm thinking, that's kind of strange. I see that in other affidavits. But I remember then going and studying third-party debt collections and court proceedings, and they put that in there because there's actually special allowances for people who are maybe a military veteran or are currently serving in the military. So even little tiny things mean something.
So what if the spouse is in the military and you're not? And maybe you're having an issue with the spouse who's in the military, but you're not. Do you mention anything like that in the affidavit?
Well, no, they'll automatically, they would really probably automatically know that. Especially say if, for instance, it's a situation occurring with a couple that had been married
Mm-hmm.
or are divorced or something,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously everybody's aware of that situation. The only problem really that you run into with that is that the courts will see that other party. If the other party, for instance, like is in the military or serves in some facet of law, a law agency, the courts, or something like that, then they receive, I'm trying to think the terminology the courts use, but they basically have a qualified testimony, meaning they automatically believe whatever they say, which to me is horse crap. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody should be automatically believed. You know what I mean? I had a judge tell me one time because I questioned an attorney on something, and the judge actually jumped in to defend them and was like, "Oh, no. I wouldn't be doing that because if they did, that would be illegal and they could lose their license."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, so you're saying that illegal things don't happen by attorneys because they could possibly lose their license? And that's like saying people won't drive drunk because they could possibly lose their license for it. I mean, that makes no sense.
You had mentioned in one of the first lines saying something like, I, so and so, being of sound mind and body. What if that person is being traumatized, or they have had to go and get a psych evaluation just to be able to get certain types of benefits? Can they say that they are being of sound mind and body, or would they have to disclose that they had PTSD or this or that or whatever, depression or something? Or should they just not even say that?
I think, you know, I've I see sound mind and body is used most often,
Mm,
and I do have one issue with it, and you are correct, because that goes right into what my issue is with it. Because you're basically making a medical diagnosis on yourself or a psychological diagnosis on yourself. And so, what I really would prefer to use or would use in an affidavit would be a statement saying something like, I so and so being fully aware of the facts listed herein,
okay,
because that's what really matters.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because you don't really want to
And then what you're,
informed testimony against yourself. I
all
swear
right.
that's the truth.
And no, that's actually something that normally goes in the jurat at the bottom, which is the final statement on an affidavit.
Mm,
But then the affidavit is just listed the basic facts, and they're all numbered, like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. If there is some sub info that is very pertinent to one of those facts, like say under number 2, you've got some pertinent information. Under that, you would indent like 3 spaces and put item number A, item number B, that pertains to, that statement that was made. But you just lay out the very basic facts of the situation. What you're doing is you're giving an overview to the court of what the situation is. Most people don't realize it, I don't think, but pretty much every court case is initiated by an affidavit.
mm,
Say, for instance, I'll give you a personal situation. Um, I had police come to my home late one night, early one morning, however you want to put it, because of something totally unrelated with me or whatever. They come around to the back door, and while at the back door, an officer lifts up a bucket and sees under the bucket that there happens to be a plant growing underneath that bucket. He just did a search, didn't he?
he did.
Well, long after this was over with, like I'm saying 6, 7 years down the road, I was talking to a friend of mine who was an attorney. He's passed away now, but he said, "Here, let me show you something." And he pulled out the affidavit that the police filed with the district attorney that initiated that court case, where he spelled out in there, going to the back door, he saw a plant growing. It's like, oh, wait a minute, he omitted something. He
Oh,
didn't say that he actually did a search for that plant, you know. But that case had already been taken care of and was long gone anyway. But people don't realize that it's really an affidavit that initiates court cases. And that what happens is that an officer or even a complaining party will go to the police, write out an affidavit, and that gets submitted like to the county attorney or whatever. They decide whether or not to proceed with it from there. But when they're receiving it from, say, a police officer or somebody involved in the judicial system, then those people, they automatically kind of believe everything they put in their affidavit. So affidavits are extremely powerful. I mean, if you think back on the last so-called election, where they said that they had all these people that had written all these complaints, and all these complaints were getting filed, and nothing ever happened, right? Well, gee, why didn't anything ever happen? It's because they wrote complaints. You can complain, you can picket, you can sign petitions, you can do that till you're blue in the face with little to no results. But it's the affidavit that really has effect. That's where the teeth are at.
And so the affidavit would have, is that a jurat or just a notary? The jurat is the one that says that everything on here is true. And the notary just says,
right. The jurat at the bottom. Yeah, the notary, all the notary is doing, they're not affirming any of the information there. They are only affirming your signature to the affidavit. They're only affirming that the person that signed the affidavit is the person that they say they are. And that's what a notary does. As far as the content or the body of the information, the notary really doesn't have anything to do with that. Although I have seen a few things, for instance, notaries will get notified statewide regarding certain things that they cannot put notarization on. One of them, I would say for Florida, I know I was in the bank one day and I was sitting with one of the private bankers and I was looking at their little Post-it notes that they had stuck on their computer screen. And one of their little Post-it notes was a note reminding them that Secretary of State had notified them that they cannot notarize anything pertaining to a birth certificate.
Interesting.
You know, it doesn't cost a whole lot. I don't think it's a bad idea for people if they have the time or whatever and a few dollars to spare to go out and get a notary license, you know, because you're going to get sent, you know, little information here and there that you're going to find kind of interesting and possibly useful. You know?
Yeah, at Wells Fargo, it's free to have something notarized if you have a bank account there. Or
yeah, generally any bank where you have a bank account at, or some form of a bank account, they have notary services there for free for you. So, you know, I see a lot of people. I've got a friend of mine actually, well, I'll say an acquaintance of mine that's a police officer for Special Victims Unit, and she does traveling notary. And because they sometimes need a notary right there on the spot, people are limited in their time as far as being able to get together to sell a house or do whatever. You know, so there's special purpose notaries like that. But yeah, in general, every bank. And think about it. Think of all the securities and things like that that flow through banks where a notary is required. So they've got to have somebody on staff all the time for that.
So can I ask
And
you a
it's
question?
just not something nice that they're doing for people.
Can I ask
What's
you a
that?
question about the format? Would it be like in the regular font, like 11 or 12? Would it be double spaced or 1.5 space? Would we be putting a name and address of the person that's going to, and then the name and address of the person that's sending? Do you have a link that you can we can put on this video for people that show an actual form of an affidavit, what it looks like? Or do you just,
To that, I would say they're pretty much the same everywhere. Although some states might have requirements that vary a little bit, and even different courtrooms, different judges have their own rules for different things. But when it comes to affidavits, it's pretty much all the same. And from my memory, it's number 12 font, and it's supposed to be double spaced.
okay.
And they like double spaced in between the lines, because that way, if they want to jot down some notes or questions about something specific, they can do that.
And it's probably behooves us to have it as minimalized on the pages so that you don't have to keep spending more money to copy these, because you probably have to have more than 3 copies maybe, or something. Maybe have like,
All right. Myself, everything I do, everything I've ever done, everything I've even done with people, I sit with them and do up an affidavit with them. And I just had somebody that passed an affidavit that they used in court by someone they met who is an attorney who was a previous judge in 2 different districts for Florida. And he looked at the affidavit and he said, "Oh, wow." He says, "What attorney are you using?" So we're not using an attorney. It's just a friend of ours. He's like, "You got to be kidding me." That was kind of funny.
that's a compliment.
But no, it's the affidavits are pretty. Yeah, the affidavits are pretty general thing. I agree with that. Everything should be like 1 page. Okay. Now, there are situations where you might have a plethora of information that can be used to defend some of the statements that you made. Okay, I had a situation where somebody had defamed someone over social media. Defamation of character, of course, is a crime. Well, for that particular statement on the affidavit, then there were attached exhibits. And those exhibit, I would say like C exhibit A or exhibit B or whatever, you know what I mean? And those would be attached to the affidavit. The affidavit itself is just 1 page. You know, that way they can read through it. If they want to go look at the exhibits that back up what's being stated, they can do that.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I recommend also, if you're gonna do it, you know, everybody says, "Oh, don't use their format or the forms." Yeah, I agree. You don't use their form, but use what makes sense to them. Use what they can recognize. For instance, if you have exhibits for it and you are actually, say, in the defendant position, there should be a blue sticker on the bottom of that exhibit that says, you know, number 2, number 3, number 4, you know, exhibit number, whatever. Plaintiffs, they normally use a yellow sticker for the plaintiff on their exhibits.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. So who would someone give or send this affidavit to? Would they attach a case number, or what if their case is over or they don't have a case? Who do they send it to? Do they do it to the clerk? or a judge or a magistrate, or who do they send it to?
Well, if you are trying to initiate a case,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, there's like no case that started yet. If you're trying to initiate a case, you're going to do the same thing as what I mentioned earlier that the police officers do. And they send it to the county attorney's office. And the county attorney looks over and decides whether or not there's a case and whether or not to move forward with it.
Is that the district attorney or just the county attorney?
Well, there's a district attorney, but below the district attorney is going to be county attorneys. And there's also going to be city attorneys. And you know what? You know, you never know. One of them might pick it up and the other one might blow it off or ignore it. I mean, they might have vacation starting tomorrow morning. So, and they're going to be gone for 2 weeks. So they're not going to look at any new business. You know what I mean? So it doesn't hurt to pepper all of them. You know, look at your city attorney, look at and with the city attorney, now you're looking at a municipal jurisdiction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead and pepper all of them. Hit the city attorney, hit the county attorney, hit the district attorney. You know, if you're not getting anything back, if you're not getting any relief from them or remedy from them, then you send it to the state attorney's office and say, listen, I have, and you know what, at the same time, when you do this on the affidavit, down at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
remember that old CC thing, carbon copy? That
Yes.
kind of lets everybody know who all is seeing this. So you put down there, this has been sent to the city attorney, county attorney, district attorney, you know what I mean? That
Mhm.
way that kind of holds their feet to the fire. Because they're like, oh my gosh, if I don't freaking respond to this, I know the freaking county attorney is going to see it and they're going to want to know why I didn't respond to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So this affidavit could be like for harm being done or harm had been done, and they're basically just putting it all the truth on there, short and sweet, and adding extra things as exhibits if they have proof to back up what they're saying, and then send it to the different attorneys.
If they have evidence to back,
Are there
Right.
fees for,
if they have evidence to back up.
do you know if there's any fees?
No, an affidavit, no,
Okay.
no. An affidavit is in the category of a declaration. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For other types of things, I prefer using a declaration, but an affidavit basically is for doing things in-house within their system. And no, there's no cost, there's no fee for typing up an affidavit and sending it to, you know, your county attorney or city attorney or whatever. One of the things that people need to stay away from, and this is probably one of the biggest faults that I see in affidavits, is people making conclusionary statements. And a conclusionary statement would be something like this. I was assaulted by Bob. That's a conclusionary statement, because assault would be a judicial decision. It would be a judicial conclusion. And you don't have the authority to make a judicial conclusion. So instead of saying, I was assaulted by Bob, which is a conclusionary statement, you would say, Bob struck me twice in the face and with his right hand and once in the groin with his left foot.
Ouch.
And then you leave it up to the courts to make the conclusionary decision on that. But normally when they see conclusionary statements, they ignore them. I mean, to them, it's like they didn't even see it.
Oh, okay.
Or
Yeah.
if you say, I was kidnapped.
Mhm.
Kidnapped is a crime. That's a conclusionary statement. You can't say that.
Oh, okay. So would these particular letters, when you go to your notary person, would you have them make 3 copies Or is it good enough to just make copies of the one that you had done? Or if you're going to be sending them out to different attorneys, should they all be original?
My preference, and I've heard different things, I've heard different opinions from the courts as well. But my preference is I go and I get one copy notarized. And I know there's gonna be a question by people on this as well, whether you use a notary or use witnesses.
Mhm.
You can use 2 witnesses. So to strengthen it, I would prefer putting 3 witnesses. Now, if you have 3 people that will sign as witness and write down their address where they sign, that way they can be contacted, to affirm that it was them, then fine. You could do that in lieu of a notary. But myself, I would just have, if I'm using a notary or even witnesses, you just do the one original, have it notarized, and then you take it. And I prefer that you always keep the originals in-house. You keep them for yourself. You make copies of the other ones. I even recommend you buy one of those little stamps at Staples that says copy, and it's normally a red stamp. And you go and stamp those, and I don't know, this is a copy. I'm not trying to pass something off as an original. And you send them to all parties involved.
Oh, okay, so the person that has transgressed, you send it to them as well? Someone who's trustworthy?
Yeah, you send it to, because it's part of playing on an even playing field.
Mhm.
You watch a football game and the official doesn't get up there or go over and whisper in the ear of one of the coaches or whisper in the ear of another coach. No, he stands up in the middle of everybody in the audience, turns on his microphone, and announces what's happening. And that's the same situation here. Everybody has to have the same info. There can't be any surprise stuff. Everybody's got to be fully aware and fully prepared. It's just like if there's a court case against you, that's why you are supposed to be able to get all the information that they have. You can go to them and say, hey, I need to get what you've got against me, because how else can I defend myself unless you know that? And they have to give it to you. It's called disclosure. It's got to be an even playing field.
Well, our next meeting is going to be starting in about 4 minutes, Brian, and I'd love for you to be on there if you're interested in talking further or about another subject. But I just wanted to ask one more question. How would someone sign their signature? Any particular way? By putting by with a colon, by putting something underneath, or saying without recourse, or qualifying it in any way?
I don't use any UCC lingo or anything like that. I will tell you something. It sounds strange, something I do. Yeah, we all do that. Something I do with doing company is that generally.
Okay. I needed that last answer. Your your microphone got all warbly.
Funny.
Yeah, your microphone got all warbly, and then the meeting cut off. I think we're still recording. That's funny. I didn't realize.
Yeah, we are. So if you normally notice, people normally sign at the bottom right-hand side. The right-hand side at the bottom is where the creditor signs. On the far left-hand side is where the debtor signs.
Mhm.
In the middle is where the man who stands in neutral territory signs at. And that's where I recommend really putting your signature, autograph, whatever you want to call it. And I normally do put I, comma, and then just write out the autograph or signature legibly.
Mm.
And then underneath it, type or print out the name so it's very readable. It's
Mm.
that simple. And the courts don't look at a whole lot of crazy little voodoo stuff when it comes to this, that a lot of the paycheck community thinks.
So did you say, did we,
But I do
Why?
notice when I look at some of their documents, yeah,
okay.
even checks I endorse are endorsed by.
Mhm. And that lets us know that, or lets others know that we're being the agent for that? Is that what BY?
Right, because it's my person. That gets in a whole other topic, whether or not that legal person belongs to them or whether you've taken control of it or not. That's a long discussion.
Which we have 30 minutes that we can discuss. Whatever you'd like to discuss, let's do
Do we have
that.
another 30 minutes left?
Yep. Mhm.
Do we have another 30 minutes left? Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think
Oh,
starting,
okay.
I think that we're starting the new meeting right here. I don't know. It says 6:59.
Okay.
Maybe
So
not.
is the previous 2 minutes just gonna tack onto this or what? How does that work?
I don't know. I'll have to check to see how, it looked like it was converting and then I can just edit it.
Oh, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, we will. I'll find out.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I want to talk about a little bit too tonight. I mean, I showed you the book I'm going through, the treatise on the law of agency, the contract law.
Yeah, should I bring it up?
I think yeah, you can show it if you want. Guys, I recommend people, I showed a link in the group where you can look at it online, but it's 780 pages. You're better off really getting a hard copy of the book.
Right.
Come off that 50, 60 bucks that they charge for it. This book was printed around between 1900 and the one I've got has a library stamp in it for 1917. I could tell the book never even been cracked open. Stamp in 1917. So yeah, I recommend people. I hear a lot of people talk a lot of stuff, and like I said earlier, it's sad when you can notice that people, their education only came from social media.
Okay, which is all right.
Because that's not what the state uses for their education.
I've been educated and they don't teach you.
Yeah, those aren't the guidelines they go by.
They don't teach you this stuff anyway, so. No private person has a right to complain by suit in court on the ground of a breach of the United States Constitution. For though the Constitution is a compact, he is not a party to it. Oh, can you see this? I am screen sharing. Okay, good. I'm looking for.
Yep, that's the Paddleford case.
Okay, this one. Is this what you were talking about?
There's been people.
700.
Yeah, there it is.
A treatise on the law of agency in contract and tort. So this is contract.
Now, can you read the writing?
Yes.
The smaller writing there in the middle?
Yes. Including
read that.
special chapters on attorneys at law, auctioneers, bank officers, oh, brokers, factors, I don't know what factors are, insurance agents, traveling salesmen, public agents and officers, master and servant. Oh, interesting.
Master and servant. But I mean, and then mentioning, traveling salesman, that shows you how old this book is.
Mhm.
But these are the principles that they follow today.
How old is this book?
Like I said, I think the one I've got is like 1900,
Oh,
and there's a library, like a rubber library stamp in the inside cover for 1917.
wow.
And I think this book was just accepted by a library and put into a box, and it was never even cracked open. There's not a wrinkle on it. It's like a brand new book,
That's awesome.
but it wasn't cheap.
Oh, good find.
But that's the shape that a lot of the books that I get are in,
Mm.
because people really don't study. The attorneys might use them and stuff like that, but they get their copy. But the ones that go to the library, and people at the library, they don't bother even cracking them open, which is sad. But contract law is something that people need to really wrap their mind around. And you don't necessarily have to read a 780-page book on this to understand contract law or the law of agency. You can study it for about a week. Just look for sources online that you can find, different schools that teach it and things like that. Read the different letters that are out there talking about it, and you can get your mind wrapped around it pretty well. But there's, with contract law, there's, depending on where you look, anywhere from 4 to 11 different elements for a contract. Typically, there's 7 that people cite. And the unfortunate problem is that people think that every one of those elements has to be met in order for a contract to be valid. Not true. Essentially, the only thing that needs to occur for a contract to be valid is your performance. If you're performing on that contract, then the court sees it as valid. The state sees it as being a valid contract. And you can't go back and say, one of the favorite things people like to use is, oh, there's no full disclosure. Well, the situation of full disclosure is that full disclosure isn't always required. It might be one of the elements, one of the 7 or 4 or 11 elements of a valid contract, but full disclosure is not always required the way people think it is. There's certain situations where they make sure that it's provided, such as when you sign a mortgage, you're gonna have to sit down and sign like 70 pages. 70 pages of crap you gotta sign. You know what? Tell them to frickin' brew a new cup of coffee. They might want to order out from Domino's or something, because we're gonna be here for a while. Because we're gonna go through those 70 pages. Because when you sign it, you're agreeing that you understand the terms of the contract. And the terms of the contract isn't just the required performance. The terms are actually the words of the contract, because that's what attorneys do. Attorneys attorn things. So they reclassify words as terms, and then they get to redefine that term to mean what they want, because it's now a tool in their toolbox.
Interesting. So they twist up the teaching.
Now, the only time that, the only time full disclosure is absolutely required is when you request it. And how many times do people sign contracts? I don't care if it's to get a bank account or to get a Macy's card or whatever the case may be, but they sign a freaking contract agreeing to the terms and all that without ever requiring the full disclosure. Whenever you're signing something, number one, you are agreeing to a contract. So always ask, to see the contract.
Hmm.
Always required to see an explanation or definition of the terms used within that contract.
Oh, okay. Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
Is that a TV behind you?
It is. I'm
Okay.
trying to get this thing correct here.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute you if that's okay. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So yeah, that the full disclosure is one of the things that people, you know, don't fully comprehend, and they want to say that, oh, it doesn't matter if it was a contract from 30 years ago, if there's no full disclosure, it's void. Void is another thing that people don't comprehend, because there's a difference between something being void and being voidable. Most generally, things are voidable. Voidable doesn't mean it's void. I always refer to a statement made by Abraham Lincoln where he said that if it's not raised, it's laid, which means if you don't bring it up, then it's considered as fact.
Don't ask, don't tell.
And that's generally what happens. Yeah.
You know, I went to my shop today and I received something from the Department of Motor Vehicles. They said that California is now having a new ID. And I was like, first of all, it's all capitalized name it's addressed to. And second of all, I haven't had a contract with the Department of Motor Vehicles in a few years now. And I'm just thinking, I wanted to write something on the actual letter and send it back. Something
Oh,
about.
I don't know. My question would be, why is it going to your shop?
Because that's where I get my mail for the person.
Okay, that's cool. Beautiful idea. I love it. I love it. That's one of the things I try and show people. Part of living in the private is get rid of your home address. You know, receive your mail through another party or something.
Yeah, I didn't even bother opening it. I was actually considering doing what I did with the Verizon bill that I was talking to Tani the other day. She's another lady that's in a group that I'm in. And she showed me about how to stand on the discharging of the bills for the person. And I have my internet and I have my phone, it's working. So I did the money order thing and they had received 2 pages of the law. And then basically they wanted to recontract. And that's what she was saying, is that they'll start sending you bills for the all caps name to recontract, to get back into contract. And she showed me a snapshot. I put it on one of my videos. It's talking about the calendar, and it has a what do they call that? What's that thing called? A sundial picture on it. So she talks about that in that particular video. But I'll definitely get the link from your video that you've already done on what was it that we were just talking about? About affidavits.
Affidavits.
Put it on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send you a link for it so you can attach it in the description box.
Okay.
Something I've noticed with YouTube is that when you first do a YouTube, a lot of times they don't like you attaching other platforms or whatever in the description box. But after the YouTube has rendered and it's been posted and it's like ready to view, then you can go back into your YouTube studio and go to the description box and then add in those things and it gets through. Oh, okay. Just an FYI hint out there.
Okay. I might be under the radar because I'm like low on the subscription thing, so yours might not be able to get away with it as much as mine.
I love and follow my YouTube, and I just started a TikTok a couple days ago,
Yeah, I'm following you.
and something I found that was interesting was that, yeah, I found something interesting is that there's certain things I couldn't post to YouTube, but I could post them to TikTok. And
Mhm.
then after I posted them to TikTok, then I could take them from TikTok and move them to YouTube. And it was, I mean, how crazy is that?
Hmm. Hmm.
But anyway, yeah, we learn all these little quirks about technology as we move along, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So Glenn, do you have
So contract
questions?
law, we're talking about contract law. What's that?
I was going to ask if
Okay,
Glenn
can
had
you hear
any
me?
questions. Yeah. Did you have any questions?
Uh, Actually, not right this moment. I just actually joined you guys, so uh, I just now found that you guys were airing, so I'm coming in kind of late, I guess.
No problem. We're just talking about contract law, and he's going to be telling us more about this book that he has that it's got 700 and something pages. And basically, we were talking about affidavits prior to this. So we're going to post it and put some links on there for people. But thanks for coming on here.
That sounds good. I'm very interested in affidavit, so yes, that would be great.
Great. Thank you.
YouTube as well. Hey, let everybody know where to find your YouTube channel.
I've been hiding on purpose. I don't want any flack. I don't want my house burned down.
Oh. Well, these things have happened, haven't they?
Well, let's see.
You know what? To me, there just comes a point where it's like, who gives a crap anymore? I think we are heading into some times that right now, we've got to start spreading this knowledge, not information, this knowledge out to people, so they can use it and take control of their lives. And I said info instead of knowledge because people need to realize that there's really 3 different levels to this when the system looks at it. Information you can find anywhere. There's a plethora of information. Most of it's bullshit, all right? But then there's knowledge. Knowledge is information that is found to be useful and correct.
Mhm.
And then there's the 3rd level, which is actually called intelligence or intel. And the thing that normally is most often found with intel is that it's secret. It's stuff that not everybody knows. And that's the gold. That's the gold at the end of the rabbit hole.
What I've been finding is that we can collect a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, but we have to, at some point, do it. And what I would like to be able to offer is for us to how to get organized, how to remember, because when you're stressed out and you're going through things and you have to answer someone right away because you're getting the 2nd and maybe 3rd letter, as far as administrative process, I want to be able to help myself as well as others while we're doing it on how to do something correctly so that you're not forgetting to have something like certified and then you lose it and then they say, oh, we never got it. So then having that little signature card from the little green card from the post office lets us have a little bit of security to know that, okay, they got it. And then you have some proof there so that when they do ask for some proof, you can fax that along with a copy of what you sent, and these little tiny details really help you to have some soundness of mind, because they really try to put the burden of proof back on you when you did something. But you had to be organized, and it's
Well,
hard sometimes.
you know what? Uh, when it comes to the administrative process, there's a little more to it than what people find online. And maybe we should do an episode just on the administrative process and how you do the administrative process. Because it's really important as to how it's done. Because the administrative process is played on people all the time and they don't even realize it.
Right.
When you keep getting letters from a creditor or somebody like that in the mail, what they're doing is they're using administrative process on you.
Right.
And like I said, just that little green card isn't quite good enough, because sometimes they can come back and say, well, we received an envelope. Sure, we signed for it, but there was nothing in it. Well, what do you do at that point? You know what I mean? And maybe that's something we could cover in another episode. But I remember, and not to drop a name or anything or names, but I was with a couple bros here several years ago, Boris and Jim, and we went to the Tallahassee governor's office. And I had something I wanted to do. Jim had something he wanted to do. Boris was basically just kind of observing and advising. And while we were sitting there in the governor's office with the secretary, I kept hearing a click. A little bit later, I'd hear a click and then another click.
You're recording it?
And just before we left, after meeting with the attorneys for the governor, I said to the secretary, and so Jim, we're like, we want to just leave our information here. We want to leave our packages here, what we've written, that way it can be reviewed. And she said, sure. And I said to the secretary, I said, I kept hearing a click noise while I was sitting here. I said, I have a question. I said, is that a timestamp machine? And she said, yeah, it is. It's a timestamp machine. And I said, cool. Could you do me a favor? I said, the documents I'm leaving here with you, could you go and stamp them on the timestamp machine, then make a copy of those and give me the copy? And she said, sure, no problem. And she did that.
Wow. About
2 weeks later, I received a package back from the governor's office. It had Jim's info, but guess what? None of my info was in that package. And that would have been because they had timestamped it, which proved that they had received it. So they couldn't just send it back to me saying, okay, we looked at it, go ahead and keep it, or send it back to you. No, I had them timestamp it, which was evidence that they actually had it.
You kind of cut out there for a second. But you did say that.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, I had the secretary timestamp it, which was evidence that they had actually received it right then and there. So there was no point in just trying to mail it back to me.
Oh, I gotcha. Like, how some, if you're going to be sending something in and you want it sent back, sometimes you have to mail a stamped, self-addressed envelope. You didn't need to do that because you already had them timestamp it. So,
Right.
Okay.
All right.
What do you know about the power of attorney?
just power of attorney. Well, whenever you hire an attorney, one of the forms you have to sign is a POA, a power of attorney, and you're signing over the authority to represent your legal person in court to somebody else, to an attorney. And I don't know if you saw what I posted on Tactical Sovereignty this afternoon, but it was for being a healthcare surrogate, which is a power of attorney.
Oh,
And that's one of the things I haven't seen people use, and I don't know why they're not using it, because you can delegate somebody, you can give over limited power of attorney or durable power of attorney to take care of your healthcare matters.
yeah.
So if you're required to get a jab or get this or get that, you could say, oh, I'm sorry, you need to speak to my healthcare surrogate.
Yeah.
And the healthcare surrogate can turn around and deny him.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing right now, because once some people start, coughing or going into the hospital, if they just put a blanket, whatever they want to call that COVID thing, they can start you on that protocol from the CDC. And then you're not going to be able to see anybody or talk to anybody. So I think it's a great idea to have the limited power of attorney for the healthcare surrogate. We probably all should write something like that up. Is that what you posted today? I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. I posted that this afternoon to Tactical Sovereignty. You can go there in the group and you can take a look at the form. I posted the form right there and a link for Florida where you can pull that form up at. And I've been a healthcare surrogate for several people that I've known living down here on Southwest Florida. I've had a lot of older people I've known, and they trusted me. And they said, listen, Bryan, when stuff hits the fan, this is what I want to have happen in my life. And I know you will defend it. And I'll tell you what, I've had almost knockdown, drag out fights with physicians, with doctors, because of things that they wanted to do with people that I was their healthcare surrogate for. And I said, absolutely not. For instance, like put them in a ventilator ward where they would basically be in respite on a ventilator for who knows how long. Their body is kept breathing, their body's kept alive, their mind is gone. But what are they doing on the back end? That's the question. And I said, absolutely not. No, you've got to let them go. They want to pass. When it comes to this point, they want to pass. They don't want to have that happen to their body. And a lot of physicians, I mean, like I said, I have had some knockdown, drag out fights over this, but I won at the end, and I won because I held a power of attorney as healthcare surrogate. And I really recommend that people today find trusted people, whether it's a family member or whoever. Some of us even get together and say, hey, we're going to be healthcare surrogates for each other. And we are going to freaking stand ground for each other.
Yeah, you don't want to get on remdesivir because that's the one that's got 50% of the people dying. That gets them on the ventilator first.
Rob Skiba. Oh, did I just say that? I'm sorry. Never mind. You might want to cut that.
No, that's what happened.
But it's the protocol. It's the protocol that kills the people. It's not the illness.
Right, exactly. They want their money.
And so if you have a healthcare surrogate that will prevent the protocol from being applied to you, that's what you want. That's what you need.
Exactly. Well, if anybody wants to learn more, they can go on Facebook group and it's Tactical Sovereignty. That was Bryan Parker. And he's posted some of his information there. There's the POA, which is the power of attorney for healthcare surrogate. So join his group, Tactical Sovereignty. He's got a couple of groups and he's also on other channels. You can probably Google him, or I can put the link in this video. Thank you so much for being here today. And I think we have a few more minutes left. If there's anything else you wanted to say, I'll let you finish it off.
No, you have a topic? Throw a topic. What's on your mind?
Pretty much
This is
mine.
your channel.
Yeah, pretty much mine was I was getting a lot of text messages and phone calls even today with people that were being alienated from their children. And I thought that the first step would have been an affidavit. So I got that from you earlier today. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking. As long as they have an affidavit and they send it to the person, and
Yeah.
to have different county, city DAs, attorneys, that would help them for relief.
I'll tell you what, child alienation is something very near and dear to my heart because it's something I've dealt with as being a legal guardian before. Okay.
Mhm.
And when it comes to dealing with the state, we have to realize that they're not concerned with the physical you and me. They're not concerned with the individual, but they're concerned with the person. And the person is the juridic entity. That's what they're dealing with. They only care about the juridic entity. In fact, I listened to a judge in court come right out and say, neither I nor the court care about the individual. We only care about the person. And I was like, wow, she just gave you all a bunch of information right there, and nobody heard it. So to me, when it comes to protecting your property, which would be your offspring, and not just your offspring, but also your legal entity, that what you need to do is you need to freaking hold original title to that person that judge had mentioned. And that person really in their realm, if you go into like UCC 9, it's referred to as an organization. I think it's more of a limited partnership, an LLC or something like that. I think it's a limited partnership, really.
Would that be putting your children on a UCC 1 to make a claim that they're your property?
No. I don't do any UCC stuff. UCC is a
Universal.
public notice. I prefer to operate in the private, and UCC is done through Secretary of State. So instead, I do things privately,
Okay.
which is through a private notice directly to whoever is sitting in the seat of the secretary at the time. That's who I communicate with.
Oh, the Secretary of State. Is that what you're saying? Secretary of State?
Yep.
I don't know.
I mean, and as far as my legal person, I did notice to Secretary of State for the state I currently dwell on, the state of my nativity, the state that I am natural to, and to the federal secretary, which is Department of State, Secretary of State.
Would these type of affidavits
In the past,
to that Secretary of State?
well, to them, I didn't do an affidavit. To them, I did a declaration. A declaration to me is for the man, and affidavit is what's done by the juridic person.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
That's the difference between the two. I mean, I spent probably 6 months alone just researching that topic alone. The
Oh,
difference between the juridic person, the affidavit, and the declaration. And when you think about it, you go back to what happened in the beginning with the United States of America.
mhm.
What did they do? They did the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, okay.
They didn't do the Affidavit of Independence. They did the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, okay. So then we should just consider doing declarations of truth versus affidavit then, for the person. I mean, if you're operating privately.
Well, affidavits and declarations are all important in their own position, depending on the situation. All right. If you want to see my declaration, I don't care if this gets posted to YouTube or whatever. You go to my Facebook, go
Uh-huh.
right underneath my picture where it says declaration, and
Mhm.
you can copy and paste that into your favorite great oracle, whether it's Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, and it will pull up my declaration. It won't show the exhibits that I provided with it, but it will show the declaration, the one-page declaration that I put out. That was some people call it a declaration of status, but that was just me letting them know, hey, I've landed here. This is my intent. This is what I'm doing. This is what I am.
Gotcha. Okay, so declaration of status would kind of be bypassing that UCC thing, then you think?
Beg your pardon?
The declaration of status is more preferable than doing the UCC for, like, let's say your children or something? For the-
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, UCC didn't come into the United States of America until 1953. So are you telling me that there were no slaves here prior to 1953? Absolutely not.
What do you mean when you say absolutely not?
So,
Hey,
I
Bryan.
mean, UCC is just a way of modernizing things so that everybody could be on the same playing level. Somebody had a question. What's up?
Yes, it was me, Brian. I was going to ask real quick. Originally, I haven't submitted anything yet. I did an affidavit, and had my name all lowercase, etc., and declaring myself to be a national pursuant to federal law. And when you're talking about declaration, I need to change the affidavit of my name and put declaration in place of affidavit, and then submit that to the Secretary of State, et cetera, to put them all on notice that I am a national, not a U.S. citizen, and then eventually get my passport to reflect that status, not a U.S. citizen. Is that correct? Am I following you correctly?
Yeah, I use declaration. I use affidavit, and I don't even use national because that can all be confused as to who's reading it. And if you really look at federal law, nationals and state citizens are seen the same as a federal citizen. So I don't even claim that because I don't believe that my citizenship belongs to man. I don't believe my citizenship is here on earth. I believe I was divinely put here and I will be divinely taken away from here to somewhere else. And it has nothing to do with any of their citizenship. Citizen is synonymous with slave or subject. In England, they use the word subject. Their people are called subjects. Well, when they instituted this new agenda, this new experiment here in the USA, they said they didn't want to use the word subject anymore because it seemed too harsh. So they thought, well, maybe citizen will be softer. Means the same thing. It's just softer. But I don't like the word citizen either. Uh, I don't want to attach myself to this realm because I firmly believe I belong to a different realm.
I agree.
Okay, got you. And also, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this, Brian. Also, that what was brought to my attention a while back, and I really didn't pay that much attention to it, to be honest with you, is the federal law, the 8 United States Code, subsection 1101, subsection 21, where it says national means a permanent allegiance to a state. And I've heard a lot of people refer that to literally mean being a state citizen or a citizen of the country, like for an example, Florida State or North Carolina State, etc. Is how it's kind of explained to me. So am I kind of like out in right field somewhere with that, or are we on
No,
point?
no, I totally know where you're coming from. Good friend of mine, somebody I freaking at least consider a friend, Kelby Smith. I think Kelby Smith is a great guy. I think his heart's in the right place and everything like that. But just myself, I don't agree with me pledging my allegiance to a state. And the reason why is because you cannot be divided. You can only serve one master.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And that's what it really comes down to. Yeah, who's my master now? One of the things that used to frustrate me, I never went to a public school. I always went to a private school. And in the beginning of each school session, we would hold it in the auditorium of the church, and we'd say Pledge of Allegiance to the Christian flag, and then we'd say the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. And I would think, wait a minute, something just seems wrong here. And there's somebody that I was checking out quite a while ago, and she actually, Deborah Jones, she actually did seminars around the country. And she questioned people because she had become a real estate agent, police officer. She'd gone through a whole bunch of these things. And she says, I've taken multiple pledges. She said, this seems confusing. And finally, somebody came to her and said, listen, here's the deal. Whoever your original pledge is to, that is your only pledge. Everything else doesn't mean crap. So when you
Brian,
hear these people saying, oh, well, they've become a senator and they've pledged their allegiance to the concept. No, guess what? They were first an attorney and they pledged their allegiance to the Bar Association. So where does their oath lie? Where does their allegiance lie? It lays with the Bar Association. Everything else is garbage. I'm sorry, go ahead, bro.
no, it was just me, Brian. I was going to ask a comment and a question. I'm like you. My attitude has been in a positive way, going back to the federal code of being national. And when I read that and read it several times, I'm thinking like, who are you to tell me who my allegiance is to be and where it's to be? I'm loyal to whom I choose to be, not who you tell me to be. And then
Thank
also
you.
my other question is there a possibility that I could get some information from you or some help how to do the declaration to do the status as a man, to be separate myself from the United States, if you will, from that juristic person, so they will leave me alone when I'm traveling, etc.
Yeah, I would recommend, just go to your favorite great oracle, Google, DuckDuckGo, or whatever, put in Bryan Parker, Bryan Parker, and type in like declaration or something like that. Or if you're on Facebook, it's right at the very top underneath my picture. It says declaration. And
Okay, yeah, we're friends on Facebook, and I think I've seen what you're talking about on your Facebook page right there, and I've actually kind of skimmed through there and read it the other night, but I ended up going to bed. But yes, I think I know what you're talking about on there.
well, we've got to remember, go to Jeremiah 1, verse 5. It says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet of nations. Guess what? Your jurisdiction was established before you even popped out of mommy. And we come out of mommy and we go and submit ourselves to man's jurisdiction instead. It reminds me of the play in Hamlet where it says, I have given you one face, but you have put on another. I mean, come on, what's wrong with people? Why don't we just go with the original face we were given?
All right, Brian, I'm here on your tactical sovereignty, and you said to go to your name. Oh, happy birthday, by the way. It looks like you had a birthday yesterday. So it says, go on,
Oh,
Brian.
not go to tactical sovereignty. Go to my personal page.
There
If
it
you're
is.
looking for the declaration,
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
okay? And you should see like declaration listed there.
Okay. Where would it be? Oh, designation of healthcare. There's that.
Oh, that is a totally different form.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a totally different format that I'm used to. No, I'm talking about
Oh,
right underneath my picture.
right here. This picture. That one. View
Yeah,
story.
that,
View story.
on my format, there's something there that says declaration right underneath the picture.
Okay.
It's just that, you know, Brian, yes, I've seen that on your Facebook page. I've been on there and stuff, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You have music on yours too. Well, okay, so this is tactical sovereignty, but go on to Brian Parker. Okay, there it is, that one, right? Declaration, got it. I see it. So here,
There you go.
okay, it just popped up.
Oh, let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like on here.
All right.
And I have some people ask me, and I don't know why, because I state right at the beginning of the declaration that I use like the epsilon or whatever, the E. And the E, the epsilon is actually a substitution for the letter S in Greek. And people should put two and two together and realize S is sovereign.
So they can do shift command,
And at the same time, there you go.
shift command 4,
Perfect.
and then copy it.
Perfect.
Oh,
Look, I use the epsilon also. So instead of putting because when I put my full name in there, then it made this turn into 2 pages. And I wanted to keep this at 1 page. So I use the epsilon instead.
that letter right there is what you're calling the epsilon? Is a Greek letter for something like what, E or what?
Yeah.
And what is the purpose of that again?
Yeah, it looks like an E. But it stands really, it's a symbol for S, and people should put 2 and 2 together. S means sovereign.
Sovereign. Oh, okay, cool. Well, very good. Well, thank you guys for being here tonight. And I want to wish you a happy birthday, or maybe we should call it a happy born day. Did you turn 45?
Well, it's my nativity day, I guess.
Cool.
Nativity day when I arrived here on planet Earth.
On the plane. Yeah. Well, thank you for being born.
Plane.
Yes, thank you for being born and for laying down your life with your time and your efforts and teaching the people so that we'll be less confused, detangled. And thank you, Glenn. for
Well,
being-
you'd probably have to thank my mom for me being born.
We thank your mom and your dad. Or the sperm donor.
Absolutely. Love my mommy. Love my dad. Sperm donor. Yeah.
Well, we're here on this plane, this earth, for a reason, and this is the time that we are supposed to be here, so apparently we can handle it. Thank you. Thanks for being
You know
here.
what? That is something I've said for the last year and a half. is that we were all made for a time such as this.